De posuit potentes de sede, et exaltavit humiles, esurientes implevit bonis, et divites dimisit inanes. This is a stanza from one of the most beloved passages in sacred scripture, the Canticle of Mary, or Magnificat, which appears towards the beginning of the Gospel of Luke. This, of course, is the Vulgate version translated from the original Greek by Jerome in the late 300s, and the text comes from ibreviary.org. De posuit, God has cast down. This is a perfect, indicative, active, third-person singular verb, and no subject is given, but it's understood from the context of the whole poem that God is the subject, the actor in all of these lines. God has cast down or thrown down the powerful people from their seat. Potentes here is a plural adjective, but it's acting as a noun, and we call that a substantive adjective. And that is the case with the rest of the adjectives in these verses. And God has lifted up the humble people. And then there's a little bit of an inversion of word order here. We have the adjective first in the next line. The hungry people, God has filled with good things. And the rich people, God has sent away empty. So we have in this passage some patterns which contrast the wealthy and those who have enough with the hungry and those who do not have. We have these verbs cast down as opposed to lifted up. We have dimisit, sent away, as opposed to filled. And then we have the powerful as opposed to the humble. And we have the rich as opposed to the hungry. And the message here is that God inverts or turns upside down the usual social order. So the sort of pyramid with wealthy and powerful at the top and the hungry on the bottom gets flipped upside down in the gospel, in the teaching of Jesus. And we also have a kind of chiastic word order or structure among the verses themselves. So in the first verse we hear about the powerful being cast down, and in the last verse we also hear about the rich being sent away empty. We could sort of relate those two meanings with one another and label them with the letter A. And then we hear of the humble being lifted up and the hungry being filled with good things. Again, it's a kind of an inversion of order. We go from A preceding B to B preceding A. There's a kind of literary or symbolic inversion. This wonderful stained glass window, I wish I had a higher resolution photo, is found at the top of one of the great windows of the nave. All of these similar round windows depict parables of Jesus. This is the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. So here in the middle, of course, we have the rich man with lots of good things to eat, a glass of wine in hand. And here at the bottom, we see Lazarus, a beggar, wearing only rags, very thin, holding his begging bowl and staff, with the dog licking his sores. Of course, at the end of the story, they both die. And Lazarus, the beggar, appears in the bosom of Abraham, heaven, while the rich man is in the other place, miserable. So in the story, there's a kind of inversion of the order that they experienced in their lifetimes in heaven or in the reign of God. The artist here has added to the story a figure who's not in the gospel text. He appears to be carrying something toward or away from the rich man's table. This is the only depiction that I know of a person of color in any of our windows. He may be the steward or the head of household or the household manager of the wealthy man, in charge of the man's finances, in charge of his property. And he seems to be making eye contact with Lazarus, as if to say, "Don't worry, friend, I'll bring you some food later." This window and its messages is very Lenten, because of course during Lent we fast and we give. We strive to become, as well as to assist, the hungry and the humble. We strive to leave behind the position of wealthy and powerful. And this, of course, is countercultural. Our society tells us we want to be the rich man, enjoying the good things. But our faith tells us that we want to become Lazarus. And if we cannot be Lazarus, at least to be the steward, who, although he controls and enjoys the property of the wealthy man, yet uses that property to help others.